What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Isaac, aka The Baddest. Today, I'm going to be ranking the Five Nights at Freddy's games by difficulty, meaning from easiest to hardest. Before I start, I just want to say thank you guys for the insane support on my last FNAF ranking. As of recording this, it's somewhere around 600,000 views, and most people seem to really like it, so thank you guys for that. But however, some people didn't like it so much because of the order. I thought I said this at the beginning because I normally do, but maybe I didn't. That video was literally just what I personally find scary. The list wasn't meant to be an objective analysis, it was just what I find scary. Which is why I found it odd that there were people mad about it and trying to argue with me about my decisions. So for this one, just to make it clear, I'm not at all going to attempt to tackle this idea from an objective perspective. This is literally based on my ability to play these games. I'm sure some of you will find some games that I believe to be easier to be harder, and vice versa. Also, people are always upset when I don't include Help Wanted in my rankings, so I've decided the flat mode version of Help Wanted is going to be on this list. This is just because I don't own a VR headset, and I think it makes more sense to rank what I have the most experience with. Maybe I'll get a VR headset at some point. If this YouTube thing keeps going well, maybe I'll get a headset and start streaming horror games on there. I don't know, but the flat mode of Help Wanted is what will be on this list. Anyway, let's get into the list. Security Breach! Oh, don't we all love this game? Security Breach is now officially at the bottom of my worst to best list, least scary to scariest list, and easiest to hardest list. I'm not exactly a huge fan of this game. The amount of times I died playing Security Breach for the first time can't be more than 3 if you exclude the soft locks. Can you outrun animatronics with bad AI? Can you play a 3D version of FNAF 1 with about 1/10 of the difficulty? Can you aim even slightly? Can you hold down the shift button? Well, then you will not have a hard time with Security Breach. It's totally fine that people like this game more than me, but it just is not for me at all, and I have a really hard time looking on the bright side with this one. I was really surprised by how easy this game was. Again, excluding any bugs that occurred, the only time I can remember dying, just off the top of my head, is accidentally falling into the pit of the creepy staff bots, and that was just me being a fucking idiot. If I were to guess, I'd guess that Scott and Steelwool wanted this game to be most appropriate for all ages. Therefore, they made it so younger players could play it with ease. Although the gameplay of this series is generally simplistic, I'm sure the precision and focus it requires a lot of the time would be much harder and more stressful for younger players than the mechanics featured in Security Breach. I will always admit Security Breach has its qualities, but it's very, very rarely challenging. Help Wanted is only on this list because of the people that complained about it before, so this is your fault. The flat mode of Help Wanted is so basic a lot of the time that it's rarely challenging. The only one I'd describe as difficult is the one with the plush babies. This one definitely built up some tension and wasn't too easy to beat for sure. And the vent repair game was a little more challenging because I was actually made to figure out how to beat it properly. And you could argue finding the secrets is a challenge in its own way. But for the most part, the flat mode version of Help Wanted is just a way worse version of old FNAF games. FNAF 2 is pretty well known for being chaotic, but Help Wanted's version of it in flat mode is one of the most boring experiences I've ever had in this franchise. The VR version of Help Wanted definitely would have been higher, but again, I don't have that much experience with it, so unless someone wants to buy me a headset, we must move on for now. Sister Location is one of the most difficult to rank in terms of difficulty because it has 2 nights that are insanely difficult and everything else is insanely easy. Night 4 was so hard on launch day that Scott had to nerf it in a patch, which is pretty damn funny. And the secret night with Ennard is so precise, and it took me quite a few tries to beat it for the first time. But Night 1 literally has no challenge, Night 2 just relies on patience, Night 3 is simple, and I'm pretty sure the only way to lose on the regular Night 5 is to literally stop moving when you're supposed to go through the vent. 4 out of 6 nights in this game are really easy, and one of the 2 that aren't is a secret bonus night, so I have no choice but to put it on the low end of the list. This game I've always described as more of an experience than a game. It doesn't have a whole lot of fun, fast, or even really active gameplay. It's just a lot of experiencing things going on around you, and I think that makes it good for what it is, but it definitely is on the easier end of games in this list. Although I actually really like FNAF 4, the main problem I have with it is how little the difficulty increases. The mechanics stay the same, and that's fine, that's what I expect in a FNAF game generally, but the difficulty doesn't really increase that much aside from Foxy's aggression. I feel like Nightmare Freddy gives you a lot of time to check on him, and Foxy is really the only difficult part of the game. Not to mention the fact that Nightmare Fredbear and Nightmare are the final bosses, but are much easier than the normal game. You don't have to be patient and listen with them, you just have to look and then move and then look and then move. It's very easy. FNAF 4 is definitely harder than every game we've discussed thus far because you do have to focus on the breathing mechanic, and you do have to be patient and manage your time at the same time, but it's not that hard when you get used to it, and it doesn't really take that long to get used to it. As long as you got a pair of headphones, you'll probably be able to beat this game. I used to say that FNAF 3 is really easy, and I still don't think it's all that hard, but it is harder than I remember. Keeping track of Springtrap is pretty difficult, especially when the cameras are some of the lowest quality in the series. However, my complaint is still the same. It isn't that hard to manipulate the mechanics. Since you have to lure Springtrap with audio, keeping him in a loop when you keep track of him isn't very hard. It mainly just comes down to keeping track of him. The reboot system is obviously what saves this game from being brain dead easy. Managing your resources is much more challenging than I've given it credit for in the past. It definitely takes focus to keep track of where he is, but again, I still think you sort of just gotta keep him in one general area for the entire night, and you'll probably get the hang of it eventually. And with like the ventilation, for example, you don't really have to act that fast. It takes a long time for that to actually affect you, so you can actually let the ventilation play out for a while if you keep moving. And then and when the camera goes out and the audio doesn't, if you remember roughly where he is, you can still play the audio trigger. So again, the reboot system is what makes it harder. It saves the game in a lot of ways, but it's still easy to abide by a lot of the time. FNAF 3, although isn't that fun for me personally, is a greater challenge than I once believed it to be. Much like Sister Location, though, I prefer this game as like a story kind of game. I think the minigames are the best part. I think it has one of the best endings, and I just personally don't really find it all that fun. And again, it is harder than I remember, though. It definitely challenges me in the later nights, so I gotta give it that. Pizzeria Simulator makes me feel really dumb, because most people seem to have a really easy time with it. Because of how many hours I have in all these games, I can definitely beat the game without a lot of troubles now, but this one took way longer to get the hang of. Although FNAF 4's formula makes for a scarier experience in my opinion, Pizzeria Simulator is just so much harder to me. Listening to the movements of 4 different characters over the unnecessarily loud noises from the computer and fan takes so much focus out of me. In FNAF 4, there's a pretty good chance you'll be able to hear when something's out of the ordinary. Not always, and that's what makes it so scary, but hearing the subtle movements in FNAF 6 is so much harder. The lack of a consistent time mechanic is also really stressful. Nearly every FNAF game consists of playing the game until you reach 6 AM, but in FNAF 6, the time simply relies on you and the AI. There's no consistent patterns that you have to repeat for 6 minutes. You can technically take as much time as you need, but your instinct makes you want to get it over with. I'm pretty confident in my abilities with all these games now, but again, this one in particular caused me a lot of troubles when I first played it. The original FNAF is another one that's hard to rank on this list because FNAF 1 and 2 are insanely easy for me, but that's because I've played them the most by far. It's embarrassing how much time I've put into them. So for this list, I tried to just base it off of how I'd play it with less experience, how I used to play it, and how I'd interpret the mechanics with a lesser understanding, and I'd say FNAF 1 is still on the more challenging end. It mainly just has to do with precision, especially if you're trying to beat 20 mode, which again is very easy for me now, but we're just going to have to ignore that because when it first came out, beating 20 mode was like the coolest thing you could do. FNAF 1 requires quite a bit of precision because of how snappy your reaction time has to be. If you don't close the door on Bonnie and Chica fast enough, they'll be able to disable your door controls. I don't like how much that boils down to random chance, but you can absolutely impact the probability by reacting fast enough. Keeping track of Freddy is also very important when he's off stage. Back in 2014, there was a rumor that Freddy's AI developed depending on the player's abilities and habits. That is how much people didn't understand how Freddy worked in this game. And then of course there's Foxy, who can easily make or break your situation. I think it's gotten really easy to neglect how well crafted FNAF 1 is because of how many games have come out since and how many times it's been copied. It's a challenging game that packs a lot of fun into a short experience. I really do still love that game to this day. FNAF 2 is genuinely one of the easiest for me, personally, now. But once again, if we erase my ridiculous amount of hours playing this game, it's definitely still one of the most challenging games. The reaction time it takes to beat this game is even more ridiculous than FNAF 1. Nights 1 to 2 could be beaten by anyone with ease realistically, but when the time frame given to put on the mask is shortened, it takes stupid speed to get it right. It's so unforgiving, and when you have to check the camera constantly, the way you move has to be perfect. Foxy is also so active, and with how much you have to use your flashlight in the later nights, your ability to win can get pretty tight. I swear, with some of these moments, there's only like a split second that you have the chance to put the mask on, because sometimes the camera will go down without you actually doing that, because they're in the fucking room, and if you don't react immediately, you're screwed. What makes this game a little bit easier is not all characters do different things, of course. A lot of them sort of do the same thing, which is they get in the room, you gotta take care of that with the mask. So a lot of it comes down to Foxy and the puppet, but it's still so chaotic because there's still so much going on at once. And that's why I love the game, honestly, because I like how fast-paced it is. I like how crazy it is all the time. That's just kind of what I like. But with how fast the difficulty increases and how unforgiving the mechanics are, there was just no way FNAF 2 wouldn't be so high on this list. Calling Ultimate Custom Night the hardest FNAF game is just so cheap, but there's no way to say otherwise. Technically, Ultimate Custom Night could be at any spot on this list, because you decide the difficulty. But let's be honest, even 55 mode is harder than basically any other FNAF game. I haven't even beaten 50-20 mode, and I doubt I ever will. I did 55, and then I did 50-10, and I am content with that. I have given up on that game. I really don't feel the need to explain this one. It explains itself clearly. It doesn't take a lot to make this game hard because of just how many mechanics are built into this game. I'll try to see if I can even name most of them. You have to use the doors, flashlight, cameras, vents, ducks, coins, sound cues, visual cues, time-based mechanics, distractions, small minigames, control of the noise, control of the temperature, control of the power. It's ridiculous. And although that is definitely a reason for some people to dislike it, it's pretty underappreciated how incredible it is that this game has so many different elements and it still works so efficiently. Again, it's a very obvious outcome, but Ultimate Custom Night is just simply the most difficult FNAF game. Something I actually had an idea for was, I think a few people have done this, is a tier list of every character in Ultimate Custom Night arranged by difficulty. If that's something you would like me to do, let me know. Maybe I'll just do it on a live stream because tier lists generally take a while. So yeah, let me know if that's something you think I should do, because I definitely think I would like to talk about how different the mechanics of Ultimate Custom Night are in more detail, so let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. So that's my ranking of the FNAF series from easiest to hardest. Once again, this was just based on how difficult it was for me to personally play and beat these games. Let me know what you think is the most difficult game in this series. I'm pretty curious actually to see what most people think. That's all from me. Thank you so much for watching once again. Hit like and subscribe if you did enjoy, because that really helps out a lot. Thank you for watching once again, and I will see you guys next time.